Everybody, so today we're going to be coloring up this Ginger Meadows Whimsy stamp by Elizabeth Bell. I had a request to color her, so I've already stamped her on my Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and you'll have to forgive my voice today. I've caught in some bug and I'm evidently going to lose my voice, but I wanted to get started on a couple of these videos that people have asked for so that we could mark that off my list. So I'm going to start by coloring her skin. And for that, I'm going to use E21, E00, and for her cheeks, I'm going to use R20 and R30. And so I'm going to start with E21, and I'm going to start down here on her foot first. And I'm going to go right along with my E21. I'm going to get a little bit on each of those little creases in her toes. And then I'm going to get the bottom of her foot. I'm going to go along the back of her leg and along underneath of her pants there. Okay, and for this flag, we're going to go underneath of her pants and along the back of her foot and get her toes just a little bit. I think I'll do a little bit on the front of this one too, because that foot looks like it's kind of behind the other foot. Then I'm going to grab E00 and I'm just going to fill that in. And I always lay down my pen on top of the dark color first and kind of flick it out towards the white. And that pulls your little, that'll soften your line that you laid down with the darkest color. Okay, then I'm going to move up here to her arms. And again, I'm going to grab E21. And you're going to put down your color where you want your shadow. So I want it to be shadowed underneath of her shirt there. And then the bottom of her arm. And I'm going to get underneath these little fingers here. And the little basket handle is also going to cast a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit right next to each side of that. And then I'm going to go over here and get this arm. And again, I'm going to do the bottom of her arm. Then I'm going to get a little bit on each of those little finger creases, just a tad. Then I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to flick on top of my E21 and pull that color away from that line and out here into my white space. We'll get this arm. And then we're going to move up here to her neck and her face. And so I'm going to start again with my E21. Now I'm going to say the sun's coming from over this way. So I'm going to make her neck a little bit darker on this side. And then I'm going to get her face underneath of her hairline here. She's got a little bit of her ear poking out, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to shadow a little bit underneath of her nose. And then I'm going to give her a little bit of a spot for her nose too. So I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit of a shadow right here. Like that. And then I'm going to grab my E00. Zoom in a little bit there closer. And I'll put my pen down on top of the E21. And again, pull it out to my white. Okay, and I usually go over the face a second time, so I don't care that it looks a little blotchy. I'm going to add my cheek color, which I'm going to use R20 first. I'm going to do her lips. And then I'm going to grab R30. I'm just going to very lightly touch the edges of my R20. And then I'm going to come back with my skin color. So I'm going to grab E21. I'm just going to brush over this cheek because it's towards furthest away from my light source. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong pen. So sorry, E21. Wonder why I wasn't seeing it very good. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on there like that. And then I'm going to grab my E00. And I'm just going to brush over that whole cheek area. And I'm going to do the same thing for this side. We're just going to go over her entire face again. And that will lighten up some of that patchiness that I had going there. So let's go do her hair now. So for her hair, I'm going to use E55, 53, 51, and 50. And I'm going to start with 55 first. And I'm going to add some shadows. I'm going to do her bangs here first. So I'm going to add some shadows right along her little headband. And just pulling out just a little ways. And then I'm also going to get this little piece here. Looks like it kind of tucks under in the behind. So I'm going to add a little bit to that. And then I'm going to go to this side over here. So go ahead and add our dark right next to the headband. And then it kind of curls under, so I'm going to go ahead and get just the tip here so that it looks like it's curling underneath. And then I'm going to grab 53. I'm going to lightly brush over my 55. I'm just going to add a little bit more color. Maybe add a little bit down here at the bottom. We'll go up here and add some to this side of her bangs. Then I'm going to grab 51. Lightly brush over that. Brush a little bit on this side. And I'm going to fill in just the back side over here because it's pointing further away, but I'm going to leave it white right here so I can add my E50. Fill in this little patch. I had a little bit left over on that side. Okay, then we're going to go up here and do her ponytails. So for that, we're going to go back to E55. So it's going to be scrunched up here by her ponytail. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of dark up here where it's going to be scrunched. And then this side of her face, remember, is in the shadows a little bit more. So I'm going to add a little bit of this to this side of her hair. And then where her ponytail comes out of the ponytail up here, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit in there. And I'm going to get the back side of this ponytail right here just a little bit. This curly Q that curls under. And this piece right here looks like it kind of swoops under too, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of color right on there. And then I'm going to grab 53, and we're going to add some more color on top. So again, I touch down on the 55. And I'm going to go ahead and fill all the way in on this last stripe back here because that's clear in the back. But now I want to pull a little bit of this color along her headband to cast a little bit of shadow in there and right next to that flower. And then we're going to add a little bit up here to this top ponytail. And I think I'll put a little bit in that dip right there. And I'm going to grab 51. Add a little bit up here, but I'm going to leave a little bit of white so I can put my 50. Okay, I'm going to fill it in with E50. And And then I like to go back after I've colored it all in and add some more E55, just a few streaks. So I'll go in and I'll hold my pen straight up and down, and I'll just very lightly add a few little checks, little flicks in here. And I don't care that it goes maybe a little bit further than the first time I laid it down. I'm just trying to add some little appearance of some hair strands, so it doesn't look quite so, to me it makes it look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to do the same thing up here by this top of her ponytail. Turn it a little bit here. A few over here. And we want to get up here where her ponytail is coming out of that little scrunchie. Turn a little bit more here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So next, let's work on this headband, her shirt, and then there's a patch down here on her pants. And for that, we're going to use BG 13, 11, and 10. I'm going to start with BG 13. I'm going to start on her headband. I'm going to add a little bit of color over here. I'm going to turn her so I can do a little bit, try not to color the flower here. And we'll add some BG 13 over on this side. I'm going to make it go up a little bit farther over here on this side, because remember her head's tilted that way and I wanted the shadows to be more on that side. I'm going to grab BG 11. We'll do this side. And then I'm going to grab BG 10 to fill that in. I'm going to go back again with my BG 13 just a little bit. And then I'll grab the 11. Soften that line just a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab 10. BG 13 to 11 is a pretty good jump, so you're going to have to blend it a little bit more. You can also do the tip-to-tip method and pull the 11 and the 13 together, and then that'll help pull it together too. So let's go down here and do this patch on her pants. And for that, I'm going to start with BG 13. I'm going to add a little bit more on this side and then go along the edge of that cute little ruffle. Then I'm going to grab 11. And then 10. Okay, then we're going to go up here and do her shirt. And so again, we're going to do with a 13, BG 13 first. And so I'm going to add a little bit right along here. She's got a couple little ruffles. And then let's do a little bit right here along this band of this sleeve. And get a few of those little ruffles. And let's go along the top of this little waistband thing she's got going on. And along the sleeve, that's going to cast a shadow. And then for her belt, I'm going to say you can see through that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add some 13 on this side. And then for each of these little ruffles, I'm going to put a little bit down the inside of that. And then I'm going to grab BG 11. I'm going to lightly brush over my 13 with this. Flick that up here. Flick over where I've laid down my BG 13 on this side. I'll add a little bit down here to that little ruffle. I'm going to go over each of these cute little creases. that's just to soften those lines so that we can go back over it with our tin next. So let's get that bell in here. A little bit on these little ruffles. Soften that up. Okay, and then I'm going to go over the whole thing with my BG tin. Careful not to color my ruffle there. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my BG13 again, and she's got a few little ruffles on her shirt that look like they're kind of in underneath, so I'm going to just go ahead and put a little bit of this in some of those shadows. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So let's go down here and do our pants next. And for that, I'm going to use E31 and E30. I'm going to start with E31, and I'm going to go right along the seam of her pants here. And I'm going to get underneath this ruffle. And on top of this ruffle, maybe just a little bit underneath this little lacy part. And then I'm going to go down this side. Same with this ruffle over here. We're going to go underneath that just a little bit. And a little bit to this little seam she's got right there. And along this basket. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the 30. Fill the rest of that in. And again, remember, you're touching down on top of your 31 so that you're softening that edge of that line. Okay, we're going to do the same thing up here. Line a couple of times there, being kind of persnickety. Okay, those look pretty good. Alright, next it looks like we're going to do the patch on her pants and the flowers on her headband. And for that, we're going to use R27 and 24. So I'm going to start with R27. And I'm going to get this little patch right here on her pants first. Right next to that cat, because it's going to be a little bit more shadowed. And I'm going to grab 24. I'm going to fill that in. And I'm being careful to not go outside of the lines. Over here and do these flowers. I'm going to carefully go around each flower center by 27. And then I'm going to fill them in with the 24. Alright, so next it looks like we're going to add some shadows to the lace on her shirt, and we're going to color the ball that she's got in her hand. So I'm going to use C3, C1, 0, the colorless blender. And I'm going to start with C3. And I'm going to go up down here to her little lace ruffle she's got. And I'm going to add a little bit of my C3 right underneath where her shirt touches it. And then I'm going to say that the ruffle kind of folds up right in here. So I'm going to add a little bit of shadow there. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit of a fold right here too. And then I'm going to grab C1. And I'm just going to lightly go over the edge of that. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender. And I'm starting out here where the white space is. I'm just going to kind of do a little circle dabbing motion back up towards the top. Okay, then I'm going to go down here to her pants. So I'm going to grab C3 again. And I'm going to do right along the edge on both sides. And then C1. Again, dab right on top of that. Edge there. And then I'm going to grab my colorless blender again, and starting in my white space, I'm just going to lightly dab out to the edge of my C3. And that kind of pushes it all back and lightens it up along the way. Alright, let's do this cute little ball she's holding. So I'm going to start with C3, and I'm going to put a little bit of an outline right along where her hand is touching the ball. Maybe bring it down here just a little bit. And then I'm going to grab C1, and I'm going to lightly go over the edge of that. And I'll grab my colorless blender, and I'm going to start out here where it's white, and I'm just going to kind of go in a little circle-y dabbing motion back towards her hand. And it kind of just pushes the ink back from the edge of the ball there. Alright, so it looks like next on our list is the fence. And for that I'm going to use E43, 42, and 41. I'm going to start with my 43. And I'm just going to add where I want some shadows to be. So it looks like the fence has like some little sides. So I'm going to go ahead and take my 43 and I'm going to color in the side here. Down to the grass. I'm going to go to the next fence stick and color down that side. And this one looks like you can kind of see it on this side, so I'm going to do this side. And I'm okay if it's not perfect. I'm going to go and add some more color, so if I didn't get all the way in, that's fine. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to add a little bit more, some shadows down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to brush up from this grass. And then I'm going to brush a little bit down from the tops too. And then I'm going to grab 42. I'm going to brush right over the 43, but I'm going to bring it up more here into the middle. I'm trying not to color that flower too much. And then I'm going to grab 41 and I'm going to fill that in. But again, I lay down on top of my 42 and pull down here into my white and go up from the bottom. And it's looking like I need to refill my pen. And you can tell that, just give a quick example. See how the end of the pen is kind of turning, let's see if you can see it here, kind of white right there at the tip. And that means it needs to be refilled. It's kind of a turning an off tan color instead of the color it is. So we'll refill that here after I'm finished. Okay, and then to give it a few streaky things like I did with the hair, I'm going to grab my E43, and starting up here at the top, I'm just going to lightly flick. And remember, I don't care if it goes down further than it went the last time. It's just to give it the appearance of some grain. Like that. Alright, so next let's do some flowers, and for that we're going to use Y35, Y21, E27, E23, YR04, and YR01. And so let's do the yellow flowers first. So for that I'm going to start with Y35, and I'm also going to do the flower up here in her hair. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my Y35, and I'm just going to add where I want it to be darkest. The back of this one. Then I'm going to grab 21, and I'm just going to go right over the top and fill that the rest of the way in. Okay, and then let's do this flower here. And I've got Y35 again, right there. And then I'm going to fill that one in with the 21. Then we'll switch back to the 35. And we've got a bunch of flowers over here. So let's do these big fat ones. So I'm just going to flick away from the center. Add a little bit of dark in here like that. Let's get this one. And then how about this one? Okay, and then I'm going to fill it in with the 21. And then let's do the orange flowers. So for that we're going to use YR04, and let's do this one over here by itself first. So again, you put down where you want it to be darkest. I'm going to go around that center part, and then I'm going to grab YR01 and fill it in. Not too much space there, but a little bit. And we're going to go over here and we're going to get these other big flowers. So if we can switch back to YR04. Flicking away from that center part. And I'm going to grab my YR01 and fill it in. I'm just lightly going over that center again there, blending my line just a little bit better. And I forgot these down here. So I'm going to do those yellow. So I'm going to grab my Y35. And again, go around the center. And I'm just going to flick out a little line into each of these little petals. And then I fill it in with my Y21. And then it looks like the centers I did with E27 first. So I'm just going to go ahead and dab, since this is just a small one, I'm just going to dab right in the middle and fill that in. Same for these two little ones over here. And then these little ones I'm going to fill in. And then for these little bigger ones, I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit at the bottom. And this one up here in her hair, add a little bit at the bottom. And then I'm going to grab 23 and fill it in. And again, I'm touching on top of the darkest, the 27, so that it'll soften that line. So let's do the basket. And for that, we're going to use E27, E25, E23, and then E30 for the cookies. So let's go ahead and just color the cookies first. So I'm going to take my E30, and I'm just going to color those in. Okay, and then I'm going to do the basket. So I'm going to start with E27. And I want this side of the basket to be darkest because it's tipped down. Try not to color her hand. And then it's got kind of a little rim right here. So I want to do underneath of that rim just a tad. And then I also want to do inside the basket. So I'm going to go ahead and go right in here. Like that. And then I'm going to grab E25 and touch down on the 27. Pull that out here. Like that. Softening that line just a little bit. Right, and then I'm going to fill it in with the 23. Handle. Like that. Okay, so for my green stuff, we're going to use G94, 82, 12, and 40. I'm going to start with 94. And I think I will do this big leaf right here first. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my 94 right along that seam right there. And then I'm going to grab 82. I fill out that other side. I'm going to put a little bit on this side. Then I'm going to add some 12. And then last I'm going to fill it in with 40. Okay, I'm going to move down here to this grass. And then again I'm going to start with 94. So I'm going to add a little bit to my stems. And then there's some down here along the fence. And I'm just going to pick a few and flick my pin up onto the grass. I don't mind that maybe they're not right on the line because it's grass. And I'm going to do the same thing over here for these. So I'm going to flick a few of those. I don't even mind really if I go extend my grass past where there's no grass. So you could go up here into this and just add a few little slices there. And then I'm going to grab 82. And I'm going to go add a few more streaks in there. And then go get this side. Add a few more blades. And then I'm going to grab my 12 and fill in this leaf over here. Okay, and then it looks like I gave it a little bit of dotty grass down here. So I'm going to take my G94 again. And I'm going to, like underneath of her feet, I'm just going to take my pen and dot it. Let me go up here a little bit. And over here, underneath the cat. But I want to add some over here too, so let's do some dots out here. And they're random. I'm not minding that they go out however far you want them to go. And then I'm going to grab 82 and I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to add some more dots. And I'm just quick up and down with my pen. Dot, 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 dot. And there's small dots, large dots, squiggly dots. Okay, and then we're going to grab 12. And same thing, dot, dot, dot. Okay, it helps if we move your paper over this time. Okay, and then I'm going to grab 40, and I'm just going to lightly brush over those dots. Try not to color her foot. Around her toes and around this cat here. But like that. Gives her a nice little something to stand on. Okay, so it looks like that leaves us with this cute cat. So for the cat, we're going to use C6, 4, 3, 1, and then he's got a bow on that I'm going to use BG 13, 11. And I'm going to start with my my C6, and I'm going to lay down where I want to have some shadows. So I'm going to say he's going to have some shadows along the bottom of his foot, and where his foot touches his belly, and the back of this leg. Maybe where this leg is touching his belly, it's going to cast a little bit of shadow. A little bit in there, his foot, and his leg's going to cast a shadow. And then I'm going to say up here on his neck, and kind of around this bow. I don't want to get too much up here on his face, so I want that to be a little bit lighter. So then I'm going to grab the 4, and we're going to add a little bit more on top of the 6. So I'm touching down on the 6 and just making my line a little bit wider. And maybe bring this up here next to his ear a little bit there. And then I'm going to grab 3. Fill that leg in the rest of the way. There's not very much space left. And add a little bit on this. Maybe start a little bit on his tail. Add some to his belly. I think I'll fill that the rest of the way in. Maybe a little bit underneath that bow. And let's go over here. Add some to his ear and around his face like this. And then I'm going to grab C1. I'm going to fill that the rest of the way in. The rest of his tail. Under his ear. Go over it a few times there to soften those lines. Okay, but he looks pretty good. So let's do his little bow, and so for that we're going to use BG 13. So I'm going to go ahead and color in this bottom part, the center, and then I'm just going to make a little bit on each of those little creases he's got on the bow. And I'm going to fill it in with the 11. There, he looks pretty good. Okay, so that is Ginger Meadows. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.